Welcome to the Lightning Out the Bottle podcast. I am your host, Mr. Leach, and it's good to be back talking Charger football with you guys. Sorry for the long layoff. I had a lot of stuff going on, getting a new roof on the house. Work got me swamped. Baby's events got me running from here to there. So I just wasn't able to get it done like I wanted to. But, these are slow times for me. Anyway, there's not a lot going on as far as acquisitions. We got a lot of live events going on right now. You got OTAs, mini camps. So we have a lot of activity going on. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because that's just the team getting back together, knowing each other, implementing the system. The rookies getting the chance to basically have a pro day for the NFL. They're showing you what they're learning and all that good stuff. So I'm not really too interested in what's going on with the OTAs. I will concern myself with what's going on when we get towards the preseason. We can get about a week or two out. That's when I want to start looking at guys, seeing how far along they've come and where they're at now. And then going into the preseason, we'll see as each player gets their playing time when they get on the field, and we'll see how far they've come. As for now, it's just the guys getting back together, having fun, running through drills, just getting familiar with each other again, how each other moves on the field, where to be, all that good stuff. So right now, I'm not really concerned with. What I really want to talk about today is some guys that I want to see take a jump in 2025-26 season because these are guys that we've drafted over the last few years. They've made marginal improvements. Some have made great strides. Some came out the gate running. So this is what I'm looking for out of these guys over the next season to see where they're at. Some guys it'll be their last year or last opportunity. Some guys are just now making their mark and they're going to be bowl game for a long, long time. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's go ahead and just talk about the elephant in the room. We'll go ahead and talk about Quentin Johnston. We picked him 21st in the first round of 2023. His rookie season, he caught 38 passes for 431 yards, 11.3 average with 2 touchdowns. He had a long of 57 yards when he was sitting behind Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. He followed it up with an increase in production in sophomore season, jumping to 55 catches for 711 yards. He averaged 12.9 yards per catch with 8 touchdowns, and had a long of 66 yards. He was alongside his new running mate and his new coaching regime and his first year as a full-time starter. His career for his first 2 years is 93 catches, 1,142 yards, 12.3 average, and 10 touchdowns. Now, we all know the biggest issue that we've had as far as him and as far as we're concerned has been his drops. However, really due to the timing of those drops, we may have overblown that just a little bit. We might have blown it out of proportion just a tad. His rookie season, he had 3 drops on 67 targets. And last season, he had 5 drops on 91 targets. While that isn't great, it isn't really as bad as we've made it out to be. He's averaged 6.4 yards per target his rookie season and 7.8 yards per target his last season. While the drops are concerning, the bigger issue to me is the catch percentage per target. 38 catches for 67 targets and 55 catches for 91 targets. That comes out to about 59% or so. That's less than 60% of the time we throw him the ball is resulting in an incompletion. And I don't really like that. Because 40% of the time it's resulting in an incompletion or worse. Some of them interceptions, are coming from his way. So, that's really unacceptable. That tells me that he's not getting any separation from any defenders like he's supposed to. He's not out fighting defenders for the ball. It's been reported that he drastically improved on his route running, and he definitely needs to get into the bowl with Ben Herbert, get stronger, and get some dog in him, man, because he's not really bullying cornerbacks like he needs to for his size. Now, I'm gonna make a bold prediction. I think if he does these things, he'll finally put it all together and finally live up to the 21st overall pick that the Chargers used on him. He's still 6'4", 215 pounds, so. He's a guy that's an after the catch threat. He could bring it. If he could bring it all together with with the addition of all the weapons that the Chargers have with the running game, the line, and if he puts it all together, they have a real shot at making it to the AFC Championship. And possibly a Super Bowl. His rise is going to be that important because if he can put it all together and become dominant on the field, imagine 2 of those on the field with him and Lad McConkey. And you got the young bulls coming into the league. This could be exciting. If you could get him to turn into a high functioning number 2, I won't say a number 1, but if he puts it together, he could be a number 1 receiver. If he can get it all, start to catch the ball with his hands, get his strength, get some separation in there, he really could be a number one option at that wide receiver spot. So my successful season requirements would be about 72 catches, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns with two or fewer drops. And he can't have no drops in big spots. I mean, zero. Like, we can't have none of those from him. So that's what I think would make a successful season for him. 72 catches, 1,100 yards, and 9 touchdowns with two or fewer drops. Tuli Tuipulotu. That's the next guy I want to see take a big jump. He's already a fan favorite. The 6'3", 265-pound edge rusher was drafted with the 54th pick in the second round out of USC. He was drafted to eventually be the starter, so he's already shown us signs of greatness, but he hasn't really shown us enough to solidify him as that next big thing on that Bulls defensive line or defensive front. So I'm thinking that he'll do that this year. As a full time starter now with Bosa and Buffalo, and Khalil's one step closer to retirement, so they'll probably try to get him in there for as little snaps as possible. Give him some rest to try to make sure he's healthier towards the end of the season. If we can get into the playoffs and make a big push, we're really going to need him to be healthy. Not with as minimal nicks and bruises on him as possible. So Tuli is going to be his first year. He's slated to step in and be the full-time starter on the left side. In his rookie campaign, he combined for a total of 53 tackles and 4.5 sacks. In the sophomore campaign, he got about 42 tackles and 8.5 sacks. They gave him a total of 95 tackles and 13 sacks over his first 2 seasons. So that's not too shabby for a young guy. You know what I mean? So, and he was only a part-time player. He was part-time starting when Bosa would get hurt or Mac would come out. He would come in. So it wasn't like he was a starter anyway. But he got 13 sacks over the first couple of seasons. So he's definitely shown us he could play in this league, and he could play in this league at a high level. So I'm expecting him to take a big leap forward now as he's 2 years into the season, into his career. 2 complete seasons, and now he's going to be a starter. That's actually perfect way you want for a young rookie to come in. Get 2 years of dibble dabbling, and then when it's time for you to be the man, you're already ready to step in. As he enters his third season, it should be a pretty smooth adjustment for him because he's had time as a starter in the last couple of seasons. So, and unless Kyle Kennard beats him out, which I don't see that whatsoever, or by some miracle Bud Dupree turns into a 9 year ago Bud Dupree or a 7-8 season ago Bud Dupree, then I don't see that happening either. So, he has it locked up to be the starter on the other side of Khalil. We just hope that he's taking that jump and he can handle the full-time duties of being the starter. He does have big shoes to fill with the loss of Bosa, and this is likely Khalil's last season, at least as a Charger for sure. He'll be expected to make his presence felt loud and immediately. He's expected to come out there that first week in Brazil and just smack Mahomes 1 or 2 times. That's what I want to see out of him. Somebody got to get smacked in Brazil. Make him come back speaking Portuguese. That's what I want to see happen. So, a successful season prediction for him, I think, would be 65 combined tackles, 11 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, or an interception, either one. I think that would make a solid season for him. First time as a full-time starter, no drop-off in production. I think a lot of these guys are going to have less production next year because of the emergence of some other players on the team, free agents and, rookies this year that we drafted and some surprise players. So, I just think that everybody's stats are going to go down the same way that, when the water rises, all boats go up. It's the same type of concept. So, the next guy I want to see make another jump is going to be middle linebacker out of Washington State, Deion Henley. The Chargers picked him with the pick 85 in the 2023 draft as a replacement for Kenneth Murray. Although I believe he should have been on the field a lot more his rookie season, the defensive guru Brandon Staley just didn't think so at all. So, although he did see the field in almost every game, the minutes were sorely lacking. So, as a result of that, his rookie season, he was only able to amass 16 combined tackles with a half of a run stuff, under the great Brandon Staley. In 2024, entered Jesse Minter. Henley was bumped into the starter position with the release of Hendricks and Murray, and he was able to go from 16 combined tackles to 147 combined tackles. Let me just give you a break right quick. Let me just back this up. So he went from 16 tackles and half a run stuff the whole season, to 147 combined tackles. 84 of those were solo tackles, 1 sack, 1 interception, 8 passes defended, 10.5 run stuffs. Get the Brandon Staley is a terrible coach, man. Brandon Staley was awful. That dude was just absolutely terrible. I don't know if I've ever seen a coach that was that bad. Like he was bad. I mean, Anthony Lynn wasn't the best head coach, but at least he was a grown up. You know what I mean? At least he was a grown up, and he would answer the questions, and he would take accountability. He was too inexperienced, and he just wasn't flexible enough to be the head coach of the Chargers that they needed at that time. So, but he was at least he was a grown up. He handled things like you would expect somebody to. And Brandon Staley was just terrible. I don't know how he wasn't fired after that Jags playoffs loss. That's when he should have got fired. That's when he should have got fired immediately. And they should have fired him loudly. They should have let the whole league know that was unacceptable. I don't care if you get in a temporary coach for the next year because you already had plans on Harbaugh or whatever the excuse was. You should have fired dude. And you should have just brought in the interim head coach that'll be there for the rest of this year, for the next season until we can get somebody in here. And that would have been eventually Jim Harbaugh. So I don't know how this dude wasn't fired. He was so bad of a coach, man. This dude was so bad of a coach. Derwin James regressed. Derwin James regressed because of this guy. You know what I mean? Like he should have just learned to delegate. That was the problem. He just couldn't let go of play calling. His ego, wouldn't allow him to say, "Hey, I'm not doing very good at this. Let me give it to this guy who's much better at doing this than I am." His ego just wouldn't allow him to do that at all. And ultimately, it just ended in his demise as the head coach of the Chargers. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent. Back to Deion. I do hope he takes another jump because now you're talking about being one of the top 3 to 5 linebackers in the league if he jumps from where he is right now. Like that's just such a ridiculous jump from rookie season to sophomore season. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. Like just how good was he his rookie season, man? We'll always have to wonder that, but I've never seen a jump like that. That is crazy. So if he can take another jump, it would definitely put him in the range of being one of the best linebackers in the league. I think a successful season for him would be 125 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery, and about 20 run stuffs. Like I said, with the development of another player on this list too, I see him getting a little bit more rest time. So not quite as many tackles. I want to see sacks and interceptions keep moving in the right direction. I need the run stuff to double, which, it's not really a lot. That's less than 1.2 run stuffs a game. So he can absolutely do that. He can stop a running back once or twice a game, every single game. I think he really has the skills to do that. Those last two would let us know how well he's reading the field, what he sees, and if he's responding to what he sees in a timely fashion. And that'll allow us to know if he's really the field general that we think he is and the guy that can be the next great linebacker coming out of this Los Angeles Chargers locker room. Now, quite possibly the most important guy that we're going to need to take a jump is going to be Deion Johnson. I was wrong. I didn't think that they would move him to center, but they are fully committed to this plan. They're really serious about making him the center, and if he can pick up the center position and become a staple in the middle of that line, we would just be a left guard away from a complete offensive line. They drafted him in the 17th round in 2022 out of Boston College. So he's still young, man. He's just entering into his 4th season. He's still a young player, man. If he gets his position down, he could definitely be a fixture on the line for the next 6 to 7 seasons. So he's played a ton of NFL snaps. So this move, now it shouldn't be as tough on him as a rookie who would have to come into the league switching positions and trying to learn the NFL game at the same time. Trying to learn a new position and learn a new league is going to be overwhelming for a lot of guys. So he's not in that position. He's already had a ton of NFL snaps, so he's a veteran at this point. And at 6'3", 316 pounds, man, he's the perfect size to play center. He's not too big, he's not too small. He's the perfect size, and he's a pretty good run blocker. Right? So, with this power backfield that they have now in place now, I see a lot of runs up the middle. And running the ball to the right side of the line with those 3 blocking, Zion, Mekhi Becton, and Joe all blocking in that direction, that's going to be rough. Right? With with Najee Harris or the Marion Hampton barreling down at you, bro. Come on, man. That's gonna frustrate a lot of defense. They're gonna be tired. They're not gonna want to tackle when you have to have when you gotta tackle a big dude over and over and over and over again. Man, you're not gonna want to tackle no more. So that's what you're kind of looking for in this scenario. Getting pushed around by big guys and getting ran over by big guys. It kind of defeats you. So by the fourth quarter, third, fourth quarter, you can start airing the ball out, and there's nothing you're gonna be able to do because the defense is just too tired from getting you know just getting run over all game. So. I think we'll see. How it's gonna work. We'll see how that's definitely gonna work. We want to watch. We want to watch that one closely. It looks to me like it's working for now. We'll see if when it gets down to it, if it pays dividends in the regular season and leads us to the playoffs, and we have a good performance in the playoffs. So we'll be watching him at that position. And I think all he has to have for to have a successful season this year is going to be a smooth transition over into that center position. So he doesn't have to be the best center in the league, but if he's a top 15, top 10 center in the league, we might be cooking with grease. So Junior Coulson is the next guy I'm looking at to take a big jump. The 6'2", 238-pound linebacker was drafted in the third round from Jim Harbaugh's national championship Michigan Wolverines. As the leader of Jesse Minter's defense, he was primed to come in and be one of the top leaders on the Chargers defense, having a complete understanding of Jesse Minter's scheme. But his rookie season, it really had some rough waters he had to navigate. It started off in training camp where he had to have an appendectomy. Then he had a hamstring injury that limited him to one start in 11 games. And in those games, man, he really underwhelmed. He had 29 combined tackles and a pass defended. I really do think the speed of the game, coupled with the injuries and then watching Deion's performance, all led to him having a rookie season which just left a lot to be desired. With a full year under his belt, though, I do, and completely healthy, I do think he has a good shot at making some noise. The coaches believe in him, the veteran players believe in him, so I got to believe in him too, so we'll see. But him, Derwin, and Deion causing havoc on the offenses on the field, man, that would be beautiful. That would be absolutely beautiful, a thing to see. And I think with that extra year, that having to go through what he went through, I think it made him stronger, and hopefully it made him a better player. And he's ready to come out and perform for the Bolts. Tarheeb Still really came in the league and made his presence known immediately. Drafted in the 5th round, he arrived in week 4, though, against the Chiefs, and he never looked back. He led the team with 4 interceptions, which is only a surprise because he was a rookie. He was a ball hawking cornerback when he was in college, so his transition into the pros was almost seamless. He had 62 total tackles, 10 passes defended, 1.5 run stuffs, and a touchdown to go with those 4 interceptions. He had a fantastic rookie season, and he'll be looking to build on that for his sophomore campaign. I think not coming into week 4 really helped his development a lot, but this year he'll be out there immediately, and he has the potential to be a shutdown corner in this league at 6'1", 200 pounds. He's a big cornerback that's fluid with great ball skills and awareness. Could we possibly be witnessing the birth of Still Island? Another Quentin Jammer on the block? So, I actually can't wait to see his development, man. It's going to be so fantastic. I think a successful season for him would be about 50 to 60 tackles, 13 passes defended, 5 picks, 2 run stuffs, and 2 touchdowns. I expect him to take a huge jump on the field, while his numbers will probably stay relatively the same. The understanding of the game, his body placement, and ball skills will be a lot higher. He'll play in 3 extra games, but there'll also be teams aware that he's over there, so they're not going to throw the ball to him as much as they tried to his rookie season. So his stats are going to suffer for that. And it's funny about cornerbacks is actually the less stats they have is the better that they are because teams aren't throwing the ball in their direction. So that's where we want to get to with him, to where his stats are just terrible because they don't even throw the ball in his direction. So that's what I'm looking for. But I do definitely think he'll take a big jump. Last but not least, Cam Hart is the next guy I want to see make a huge jump. He was drafted pick 140 in the 5th round shortly after his counterpart. He came in and got 37 tackles, half a sack, 1 forced fumbles, and 7 passes defended. He was immediately a boost to energy every time he was inserted into the lineup. He was making big plays, big hits. My biggest concern with Cam, though, is not that he won't make the jump to the next level as, much as he will survive the season. His hard-hitting style sees him leading with his helmet a lot. He's already had 2 concussions his rookie season. He had an ankle injury, a labrum tear. So he definitely needs to work on his form tackling to alleviate some of those injuries. He's going to seriously hurt himself the way he tackles. Like, he doesn't play under control. He needs to really, really get that under control because you can actually hurt yourself, cause debilitating injuries to you for the rest of your life. So this actually could be a matter of life and death for him to learn better form tackling. Because, with that many injuries just into his rookie season, 2 concussions already, that's a big, big problem. That's a major red flag. That's telling me that you're doing something wrong. When you're a cornerback getting concussions like that, it's not like he got ran over by a big running back that he didn't see coming. That's him crashing into people, over and over again. So he needs to really get that form tackling under control, and I think he will. I think Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter will get that under control, you know, because that's going to be a big, big difference between him having a 2 to 3 season career and him having an 8 to 11 year career. So, he had a fantastic rookie season. He's a big, big, strong cornerback. He's 6'2", 208 pounds. He's fantastic in run support. So, and he still has plenty of room to grow. And with the bodies currently occupying that room, he has the time and space to do so. So it's no real pressure for him to step up and have to actually ball immediately, right? And I think he'll continue to improve. I think a successful season for him would be 44 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 2 run stuffs. He definitely has the skill set and the mentality to become a great cornerback in this league, but will he be able to stay on the field long enough to do so is my biggest concern with Cam Hart. So that's what we're going to be looking for. There are definitely more guys that I'm excited to see take a big jump, but I just wanted to focus on some of the players that we've drafted over the last few years. Justin Aboigbe, I really want to see if he can get on the field and cause some static, but your drafting of Jamari Caldwell was kind of pushed him down a slot in my eyes. Same with Otito Ogbonnia. Between the draft and free agency, these two are really going to have to make huge strides to get on the field and even keep their spots on the roster. I mean, we're starting to look a lot better in that D tackle room. And if they don't make it this year, I'm already knowing one more draft pick next year will be used on a D tackle. I promise you, because these two haven't shown us really too much, coming into the team and over the last couple of years. So I want to see if they actually could take a jump with a full year under Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter and good coaching and a well-run organization. And if those two can make jumps, that would be great. If not, then we'll probably have to move on. Jasir Taylor is another one, and he's in a similar position. With the emergence of Still and Hart and, the addition of Dante Jackson and Benjamin St-Juste, the opportunity to get on the field is just going to be very, very limited for him. So he's going to have to take advantage of every opportunity that he gets to have a chance to make an impact on this team. I'm pretty sure he'll make the team, but, getting on the field is different than just making the team. So he's going to have to, any opportunity he gets, he's going to have to make himself stand out largely. So we'll see how that happens with him. I'm hoping the best for him, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for joining me on the Lightning Out the Bottle podcast. Don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments. And since you're already here, you should go ahead and subscribe to me. Hit that bell notification so you get my videos first. And as always, bolt up. Lightning out the bottle, baby. Let's go!